Hey everybody, welcome to Country Living Homestead. Today I'm cleaning one of my cast iron frying pans. I cooked eggs in it this morning, so I thought I'd bring you along and show you how I like to clean and take care of my cast iron pans. So the main tool I use to get any stuck on food off is just one of these little plastic scrapers. And if I need anything extra, I usually just use a little bit of salt. So the pan is not really that bad. This is seasoned really well, so things don't really stick to it that often. So I usually just scrape off any of the residual food left on the pan with my scraper. Then if there's still a little bit of stuff in the pan, I will get some salt just as a little extra scrubbing power. And just give that a whirl around the pan, and that usually is enough to take anything off the pan that's stuck on. If something is really stuck on my pan, I will put it on the stove with a little bit of water in it, and I'll boil it for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and that is usually enough to get anything that's really seriously stuck on off. Now, cleaning cast iron pans is a very controversial subject. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I definitely don't claim that my way is the right way. This is just the way I learned to do it from my mom, and she learned how to do it from her mother. So once I get this far with the pan and everything is unstuck, I just give it a rinse. Make sure all that salt is out of the pan. Make sure all your food particles and all that are out of the pan as well. Once I give it a good rinse, I just dry off the bottom of my pan, and then I take this wet pan and I set it on my stove and I turn it on a low heat to dry the pan. So I just turn my stove on, just between a medium and a low heat. And I just let my pan sit on this burner until it's dry. And it will take a few minutes for your pan to dry on the burner. This is just the way that I like to do my pans, but my husband's grandmother had another way of taking care of her pans, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, so as you can see, the pan is dry. At this point, I turn off the heat. The pan is still warm. I take a little bit of lard, and the reason I use lard is because we raise pigs, so I've usually got some on hand. I take a little bit of this lard, and you're gonna wanna wait until the pan is cooled off a little bit to do this, and be careful, you don't wanna burn yourself doing this, but I just put a little bit of lard on a clean cloth, and I rub it around the warm pan, just to get a nice little coating on there, but you don't want it dripping or anything. And then I just kind of wipe off the excess. And I turn the burner back on for a few more minutes on about a medium. And I just kind of let that re-season the pan for the next use. And I don't leave this on here very long, maybe a minute or two, that should be enough. At that point, I just turn the burner off, take my clean rag, and I just make sure that there's no oil pooling inside the pan, so I just give it a little wipe, and that's what you end up with, a nicely seasoned pan. Now, I don't ever use soap on my pans. I know they say nowadays that you can use soap on your pans with the modern dish liquid and things like that, but I just choose not to. I have vintage cast iron pans, and I would just like to keep the seasoning on there, so I do avoid using any type of dish liquid or any kind of soap in my pans. Usually water, I find, is enough to take off anything that's on the pan. My husband's grandmother had a totally different way of taking care of her pans. She would just wipe hers out with a paper towel or a napkin and store it in the oven, where she always stored all of her cast iron pans, and that's all she would do with it. She would bring it out when it was time to use it. She'd heat it up for a little while on the burner, I'm assuming to kill any bacteria or anything that would be on the pan, and she would cook in them. And those pans never saw water, and I will say they were very, very well seasoned pans. And now for my last tip. How can this help you with this? Well, one of the things I like to do when I get a new cast iron frying pan is go ahead and cook up about a pound of bacon in the pan. That will really help get a good base seasoning on your pan. And hey, who doesn't like bacon? So it's a win-win. You get to eat some bacon and season your cast iron at the same time. Let me know in the comment section how you take care of your cast iron pans. Thanks for stopping by the homestead.